Thanks for joining us on ESPN FC. If you weren't already awake, I'm sure that intro music has got you pumping, blood running through your veins. We've got Mark Ogden and Janusz Michallik with us. They've got over the jet lag. They are back from World Cup duty in Qatar. And all the focus now is on the Premier League, transfer news, and everything we've seen so far with the return to domestic action. Coming up in the show, we'll be talking about Cody Gakpo going to Liverpool, more of the transfer rumours as well. Bit of drama between Benzema and the French national team, well, Didier Deschamps to be precise. We'll get into that topic, and we'll talk about a potential target for Arsenal as well. So let's start with the Cody Gakpo news if we can. He's on his way to Liverpool. Many had thought it might be Manchester United. Have Liverpool swooped in here and stolen him from United, Mark?
Well, it depends who you ask, but if you ask Liverpool, then yes. If you ask Man United, there'll be a case of, well, we didn't really want him anyway. And, you know, we looked in the summer and we weren't quite sure. Look, Erik ten Hag has been a big fan of Cody Gakpo for a while. He really pushed hard to get Gakpo at United in the summer. It didn't quite happen, but we all know that United need a forward. They've let Cristiano Ronaldo go, and you can argue they needed a forward before that even happened. So they've lost Ronaldo. They need a forward. They're still looking for a forward, but they've missed out on Gakpo. Different reasons. One is that the money involved was too high for United, £37 million. Liverpool have done that. I think that's quite a decent fee for a player that is 23, one of the emerging talents in Europe. So, yes, Liverpool have beaten United to another forward. Don't forget they beat them to Darwin Núñez in the summer. The jury's out on whether that was a success or not, but I think it probably will be. So United have missed out, and the situation now is that they still need a forward. I do wonder whether Gakpo was the right fit. I'm not sure he was, but, you know, if Erik ten Hag wanted him, then he thought he was. But I think that United have got a lot of players who can play on the left and cut inside on the right. You know, Rashford, Martial, Jadon Sancho, Garnacho even as well. So I think that what United really need is a proper centre forward, a guy that, you know, will score 20 goals a season, a proper number 9. And Gakpo isn't that, but still he would have been an upgrade on what they've already got.
So, Janusz, why is it that Liverpool have wanted this player, and what are they getting in him?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, they were desperate, weren't they? I mean, if you look at injuries and the number of competitions they're in, you look at Bobby Firmino, Luis Diaz, and Diogo Jota being injured, they needed somebody. And what's the risk? I mean, let's face it, Liverpool are an attack in heaven to anybody. We don't know what Cody Gakpo is going to do or not, but I love his versatility because that's what the system at Liverpool always is. So that's a bonus. Everybody's looking at a player and wondering what he may or may not do. Well, I'm looking at a 23-year-old that's had 3 goals in the World Cup in all 3 group stages, scored 13 goals and 17 assists. And I almost like the assists more than I like the goals, because if you look at Liverpool, they score by committee. It doesn't really matter how many goals you score. Look at every player. I guess Mo Salah is the only one goal scorer that we can talk about. But everybody else, we quickly forget if they have 6, 7, 8, or 9 goals because they're going to get them. That's not an issue with Liverpool. Scoring goals has never been an issue. That's why I think the risk with Cody Gakpo is none. I mean, at worst, he's going to be Divock Origi, and we all know that he's a legend anyway.
Yeah, obviously, with what he's done for the club too. Do you have any concerns, though, Janusz, with signing a player on the back of a good World Cup? That's always brought up when it comes to players who've had a good World Cup and then they get signed. But the fact that you say that there's been interest in this player for a while, can you point to that with this situation?
No, I mean, I don't have risk about players that are scoring goals and are in form. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I just know that, as I've said just before that, I mean, he's doing everything that you asked a player to do. Now, obviously, the difference is between Eredivisie and I suppose Premier League is vast. I don't know if he's going to be Ruud van Nistelrooy or Van de Beek. You know, we of course don't know that, but I see him as a player that does so much on both sides of the ball. He's very good defensively. As Mark said, I mean, you know, he can play on the left. He can play through the middle. Those are the players that Jurgen Klopp likes. You can say much of muchness, but remember, when Bobby Firmino came in, he wasn't a goal scorer. Sadio Mane, I could make a case that he wasn't and still isn't a prolific goal scorer, even though he scores. You learn in that system of Liverpool. So I'm looking at a player, £37 million? Correct me if I'm wrong. I see at this moment, with the track record of Jurgen Klopp in January, that's been pretty good so far, I see very little risk.
So where does this leave Manchester United then, Mark? Is this going to be Erik ten Hag a bit perturbed by this?
I think he probably will be. I think, you know, United won 3-0 against Nottingham Forest on, what day is it? I've lost all track of days in the holiday season, but last night. And Rashford scored, Martial scored. On the face of it, he's got goal scorers up front, but he hasn't got people he can rely upon to score the heavy goals, the goals that win big games, the goals that are really kind of hard fought. And I think that's what United need. They need somebody who can do that. Now, I was told that about a month ago now that United were looking at Christian Pulisic in January, but only on loan, because they want to take a look at people that they don't want to commit a fee to a player at this stage, when they could get them for less in the summer, or maybe not want them in the summer because they haven't done a job. So Pulisic is still on the radar, but I don't think he's an answer to United's problems. He's not a centre forward. What they're looking for is a guy, and it might not exist. It might be this kind of unicorn sign. They want a centre forward who'll score a lot of goals, but is available on loan. So good luck with that, because there aren't many of those available. That you think about it, that Liverpool have got such an array of options now. They've got Firmino, who's an outstanding player, 6 months left in his contract. They've got to give him a new deal, but they might not, because they've got Firmino. Sorry, they've got Luis Diaz, they've got Diogo Jota, they've got Darwin Núñez, they've got Mo Salah, they've got Cody Gakpo now. But he's not going to Man United. There's no way that Liverpool letting Roberto Firmino go to Man United. But he'd be perfect for United, but it isn't going to happen. So where do Man United right now find a centre forward who's available for 6 months, who will score a lot of goals? I just don't know what they're going to do.
What do you think? What do you think about that? Talk about Pulisic to United, Janusz.
No. I mean, he first of all, he's not a goal scorer. We all know that he's not going to score goals consistently. We've seen that over and over again. So I mean, it's not the profile that United are looking for. I almost want to say, and I don't know if you guys agree with me, but for the first time in the last couple of weeks before the World Cup, and then since that one game, I finally see a team in Manchester United. I would not add anybody. They have enough. Mark, I think you said it. They got to get Jadon Sancho going. They got to get Anthony going. I think Rashford can play just about anywhere. We can argue if he's a center forward or not, but he can deputize there. I know that Martial is not always the healthiest of players, but I think they've got enough right now. They need to continue this process, I suppose, a little bit like Arsenal. And if you're going to spend money and you don't have it, wait. There's no reason to buy anybody. If I were Manchester United, I buy a Manchester United player. Forget Christian Pulisic. Forget some, smaller names. I mean, they're building. They have a good manager. They're in a good place in the Premier League right now, and they're still building. I mean, this is not a finished product by any means. I go for Victor Osimhen. When it's all said and done, once you do have the funds that you can really spend on a player that is going to come in and immediately make a difference. To me, there are many out there, but Osimhen, with his profile at Napoli, Napoli eventually will always sell. It's going to be expensive, but this is Manchester United. Buy a player that's going to bring you trophies.
Well, when you say buy a Manchester United player, what do you mean by that, Janusz? What is a Manchester United player?
Big time players. Cristiano Ronaldo, maybe not the last version, but a player that's going to be able to carry the weight of that, right? Right now we're talking on loan, and I understand. United can't afford Gakpo. Imagine that. They can't afford Gakpo. So why buy somebody right now just to have numbers there? I look at that squad, and they're doing pretty well right now. I think players are happy. I'm not sure I'm bringing somebody just to integrate him in the second half of the season when you're truly not sure that you're getting a quality player, because you're looking desperately for loans and you can't spend money. Why do it? There is enough at Manchester United to finish top 4. They're not going to do anything else this season anyway. So finish top 4, back in Champions League, and then continue to build with players that you truly want, not just because you feel you need a number 9.
I think what United need, the recruitment in the last 18 months, they brought Rafael Varane, who's been a big asset at the back. They brought in Casemiro, who's transformed the midfield. 2 players who, experienced, been around the block, have won things. I think they need a character like that up front, somebody that can just alleviate the pressure a little bit on Rashford and Martial and the young players that are coming through, because they've all got goals in them. But I think at times, and this is why Mourinho brought in Zlatan all those years ago, he felt that Martial and Rashford weren't quite ready to lead the line. I still think that applies, even 5 years on. I still think that at times they are both very fragile confidence players, and I think having a guy there's no Henrik Larssons anymore, unfortunately. When United signed Henrik Larsson on loan, that was a perfect signing. One of those would be brilliant. It's not going to happen, but they need somebody like that. Now, a name that I've heard mentioned is Benjamin Sesko at RB Salzburg, but it sounds like Leipzig have done a deal with Salzburg to get him in the end of the season. Now, whether a deal could be done to buy him out of that deal, who knows? But United haven't got money to spend, and the reason why is that the Glazers want to sell. Now, the Glazers aren't going to start spending lots of money in January because they might not be the owners by the end of the season. So they've got a difficult balancing act, the Glazers. They want to move the club on. They want to make sure it's a saleable asset, and it's got to be an attractive asset to whoever buys it. But equally, they don't want to be spending 50, 60 million pounds when they might be out of the door. So this is United's problem. They really do need. I know Janusz thinks they've got enough. I'm just not sure about the striker. I do think that at times they can let them down. I think when the pressure's on and with all the games coming up, I certainly wouldn't rely on Martial. I think he's had eight seasons now of promise, but not really delivering. Rashford is getting a lot better. I think Ten Hag has made big improvements there. But he's got 18 months left in his contract. Is Rashford going to be there long term? Is he going to go in the summer because he won't agree a contract? So I just think United needs somebody up front to knit it all together, an experienced head who can just get them through to the end of the season, get them into the Champions League, and then that makes it so much easier to accelerate the improvements they've already seen under Ten Hag.
Yeah, because that's the interesting thing, isn't it? With Chelsea and United, you're pointing at the fact that both of these clubs really need to score more goals, really need to get a striker in. As for Ten Hag, he knows that he needs a replacement for Cristiano Ronaldo. But he's even said again today when he's been asked about Cody Gakpo that he thinks he has a strong enough squad. And he said, we will only replace if the right player is available. Is there any chance that they don't recruit in January, Mark?
Yeah, there is a chance. And that will worry a lot of Man United fans, but they won't just sign somebody for the sake of it. I think those days have gone. I think with Ed Woodward leaving his role as chief exec a year ago, those days have gone. Those days of making a late signing to appease the fans have gone. I think they've got a lot more sensible approach to that. They're more strategic now. And I think, yes, they would like to bring somebody in, but they're not going to make... They've made so many bad signings over the last 10 years that I think they've learned a lesson that there's no point in making rash signings. You could argue that Cristiano Ronaldo was exactly that. He had a great season in terms of goals last year, but the long term, it disrupted everything, and it didn't end well. The players in the dressing room were glad to see the back of him. So United have got to make a player that is there for the next 4 or 5 years, as Janusz says, not a guy that's going to be a short-term fix. But if they can find a short-term fix that doesn't cost them any money, that is the way they're going to go.
Janusz, we've got people in the chat saying Ivan Toney and Vlahovic when we're on this conversation here. What do you make of that? And what do you think of the likes of Martial and Rashford at Manchester United and their long-term options really there?
Yeah, I mean, the first, and I get what Mark's saying, if you can find somebody that doesn't cost a lot of money at Manchester United, that doesn't happen. It's Manchester United. So anybody's going to cost money just because a big club wants them. But Ivan Toney, another name, it's pretty good. I was thinking a little bit, although, I don't know if the profile is absolutely correct, but Mohamed Kudus, Ajax player, Ten Hag knows him very, very well. I mean, attacking midfielder, we saw him at the World Cup for Ghana, can play through the middle, play false nine. Maybe that's not his best position. Can play wide, but it's another player that perhaps because it's Ten Hag, he can find. Ivan Toney, perfect name. I wish I thought of it right away, although I still think Osimhen is a better player. But obviously, Toney has the experience and it's proven that he can score in the Premier League. So that's a player that would definitely pay attention to. But like Mark said, I would not sign a player right now just for the sake of it. They can wait. They will be fine. The signings that they have, I mean, it's incredible what Casemiro has done in the midfield. Let's not forget Bruno Fernandes, who's playing tremendously. He's almost like a false nine at times. I don't think there's a need. So wait till the end of the season. If there's money available, Ivan Toney, perfect name.
Yeah, and obviously to wait to the end of the season to see what happens with his off-field issues, and then you can make a better decision with it. Let's go on to Chelsea, though, because hang on, Mark Ogden. Do you have a name?
Yeah, I've got a name, and I'm not saying he's available. I think the one player that would be perfect for Man United right now is Olivier Giroud. I think, and we know that he moves around. He's a guy that does a short-term fit. He's been at Chelsea, he's been at Milan, he's been at Arsenal. He's had a great World Cup, and I think he is exactly what Man United needs, a short-term fix. A guy that will score lots of goals, give them something different, is a winner, experienced, a bit like the Casemiro-Varane situation, where a guy that knows what he needs to do, what the club needs. He'd be a brilliant signing. 6 months on loan. If Milan would let him go, I'm not sure they would, but there's always a deal to be done. And I think he's a sort of imaginative sign that United need to make with money being short, in terms of transfer fees.
Just before we do move on to talk about Chelsea, actually, because we're going to talk about both of the games that we have seen. We have seen, though, a 3-0 win for Manchester United over Forest yesterday. What was your biggest takeaway from it, Mark?
I just think that the confidence that United showed right from the start, considering that they had a lot of injuries at the back, when we saw that Luke Shaw was playing centre-half, you're thinking this could be a tricky night for United. But right from the start, they passed really well. They put a lot of pressure on Forest. They dominated the game. I just thought they looked like, I think as Janusz said earlier, they look like a team that's coming together now. I've got a couple of reservations about people like Anthony. I'm not quite sure he's going to be a long-term success, but he did what he needed to do last night. And I think United just looked in command, and it was a big game for them because obviously Chelsea had won and Liverpool had won as well in that round of games, and they had to win to keep pressure on the top four. And if you look at the top four right now, if United win the games in hand on Newcastle, they got a point behind them. So they really are in the shake-up for not only top four, but within the top four as well. So the winning games, the winning games that last season they were dropping points and struggling to win. And I think that's the change in the Ten Hag. That you actually trust Man United now. You trust Man United to win the games they should win. And that's the first time we've said that for a long time. So that was, for me, was a big takeaway last night, that it was one of those games that in the last few seasons you're thinking Man United might slip up here. You don't think that now. You think that they're going to win those games.
Do you get that same feeling, Janusz?
About Manchester United or Chelsea?
Yeah, about Manchester United.
I like what they're doing, and I haven't said that very often. Those that know me, I don't talk about United that much, but I like what I see. I see a team. I see leaders. That to me is the most important thing, because if I look at, again, I'm going to bring back Casemiro, because I think Real Madrid did the right thing, because they have a monstrous player in Tchouaméni. Mark, you've seen him in Qatar, I'm sure. I mean, some of his performances are, my goodness, what a player he is. And they needed to create a space for him, but he's still playing at his best. And I think there's more to come from him. So if you look at Varane, if you look at Lisandro Martinez, who played an important role for Argentina in the World Cup, didn't play a lot, but played some important minutes there. I see a team being built, and the fact that Ronaldo's gone, we have to continue to talk about that, because that's massive. It takes away all the unnecessary narratives away from them. And Ten Hag continues to prove that he knows how to make good and tough decisions. So, when a team struggles, and we can look at Manchester United for years, we can look at Arsenal, we can look at Liverpool many years ago, the first thing, once you hit the bottom, is that you need leaders, and you need managers that understand how to build teams. And I'm starting to see that in Ten Hag and Manchester United.
Did you get to see the Chelsea game, Janusz? The 2-0 win over Bournemouth?
I did see that. I still can't. I don't really know what to make of Chelsea, and this is the first time I say that. Okay, you know me. Usually the team picks itself under the previous ownership and some of the managers. It's easy to say it. Yes, a lot of injuries. An important win for them, but I still don't know how good Chelsea Football Club is at the moment. It's an unknown for me. The only thing I will say, that Graham Potter finally is playing back four. I never understood why he played back three. Many have been telling me that Thiago Silva is incapable of playing in that position. Against in Qatar and in Brazil, he's proven that he can. Yesterday, I saw no issues. I suspect that in the biggest games against some of the top players, yes, I mean, at his age, maybe you get fined out, but who doesn't? I mean, against great players, it doesn't really matter. So I like Chelsea playing with the back four for sure. When everybody's healthy, I don't think that back three is a way to go for them. But everywhere else, to me, massive question marks.
Yeah, and talks about who they're going to bring in, Mark. Obviously, Declan Rice is the big name that's mentioned. He should be available if the price is right. And it's not like it's new. It's not like they haven't tried to get this player before. But will he get there in January? Will West Ham let him go in January?
Listen, my head's spinning with Chelsea, because I don't know where they're getting the money from. Because they've been linked with Christopher Nkunku. It's going to happen. Josko Gvardiol. They brought in Fofana during the summer. They brought in Koulibaly during the summer, Raheem Sterling. Declan Rice will cost about £100 million. So I really worry about Chelsea. I don't think Declan Rice will happen in January. Not a chance. Certainly not between West Ham and Chelsea, two clubs with a big rivalry. Maybe it's bigger on the West Ham end, but West Ham will do everything they can to keep Declan Rice for the summer and try and create a bit of a bidding war, an auction for him. But I do worry about Chelsea, because I think in every key area they've got rookies. They've got an owner that has come from the US sport, a different ball game in football in the Premier League. You've got Graham Potter, who has never managed a club or players of the stature that he's got at Chelsea. They've lost Marina Granovskaya, who ran the show at Chelsea in terms of off the pitch. So they've got novices ever, and it actually reminds me of Man United after Ferguson left, when David Gill went, when Moyes came in, when Ed Woodward came in. They made a lot of mistakes, and I think I just don't think Graham Potter's a fit. I just think big time players. And Chelsea have got a lot of those big-time players who've won Champions Leagues, won World Cups. They look around and they think, right, how are you going to make me better? and they either look at the guy's playing record and think, yeah, great player, I can learn from him, or his coaching record and think he's done big things. Graham Potter has done nothing in the eyes of the Chelsea players that will impress them. So he's got to impress them on the training pitch. And if that isn't happening, and we're not seeing much signs that it is because the results have been up and down, I just think that they'll switch off. And we see it all the time with top players. Top players want to be coached by coaches they believe are on the same level as them. And I think that the rest of them at Chelsea look at Graham Potter and think, not sure what you're going to do for me. And it's exactly what happened with David Moyes at Man United. The players have given him a bit of time, and as soon as they find a crack in the armour or results aren't going their way, or he drops a big-time player and he's like, why are you dropping me? That's when problems start. And I just think that because there's so much inexperience at all levels, it's not going to work for Chelsea.
Wow, what do you think of that, Janusz? Because we've had a question from a fan as well saying, is Potter the long-term solution at Chelsea?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, I tend to agree with Mark, but I almost wonder if there is maybe a thought at Chelsea to rebuild Chelsea in a different way. Younger, not as many stars, not what it used to be under Abramovich, right? So I think if that's the way to do it, and I suspect it is, because we don't know if N'Golo Kante is going to renew. I think Jorginho is not going to stay there much longer. I think Thiago Silva is going to leave eventually, and I think you're going to see Chelsea Football Club buying maybe big stars, but much younger. If that's the case, then I can see Graham Potter being there. So if they show the patience that's needed, I could see a similar way of managing the club like we see at Arsenal. Because, that situation is the same. I mean, we can always say that big-time players want to play for big-time coaches. That's true. I mean, I don't know if that's the case with Ten Hag as well, right? I mean, I look at Ten Hag and I'm thinking, I don't know. I mean, 5 years ago, nobody would know in Manchester who Ten Hag was. But that doesn't mean he can be a good manager. He's won at Ajax, which is, I think that's where Mark was going. And as we all know, Ajax sells their best players all the time, and yet they find a way to be an important team in Europe and in the world for that matter. So if Chelsea are changing their ways and going a little bit younger, then I think Graham Potter could be the solution, because he understands how to teach teams and players to play good football. But if they're going to continue to spend a lot of money on experienced players, then I think I'm with Mark. I think that's not going to last very long.
Now, we're going to talk on a few more transfer rumours, but before we do, Janusz, I want to just pick you up on the drama in the French national team. It seemed to go by quite smoothly, but it hasn't been the case. Now that the World Cup is over, Karim Benzema's agent has blasted Didier Deschamps, basically saying that his player was fit and available to play in the knockout stages. Remember, he picked up a training just before the tournament, on the eve of the tournament, was withdrawn from the squad, but Deschamps never did replace him. And it all seems a little bit fishy here. What have you made of it all, Janusz?
I just think that, to be honest with you, I think Deschamps probably will admit that he's made a mistake to bring him back. And I don't know if there's pressure. I mean, Didier Deschamps doesn't seem to me like a manager that caves in under pressure. But I think if you saw Karim Benzema, obviously the way he was playing, he was going to win Ballon d'Or, tremendous season with Real Madrid. And I just felt that maybe with Olivier Giroud, the only option really in that position, he felt or was convinced by someone to bring him in. And he probably knew from the beginning that didn't need to happen. We all know what happened with Mathieu Valbuena and that saga before that. And, players sometimes forgive, managers, I don't think forget. I don't think Deschamps, probably if you talk to him 5 or 10 years from now, he probably will admit that was a mistake to bring him in the first place. Having said all of that, I wonder in that final where Giroud was withdrawn rather early, having Karim Benzema on that bench, if that final may have gone differently.
I mean, it was hard not to think that, Mark, when you knew that he wasn't going to bring him back, and you just saw those early changes in the concept of the game, that he did make that double substitution in the first half. It did cross many people's mind, didn't it, if Karim Benzema was there?
Yeah, and it is a difficult balancing act, isn't it? Because if Benzema isn't a good player in the squad, if some of the players are resentful of him being there, and if he creates an atmosphere by being there, then having him there for, from the knockout stage onwards would have been, a 10-day, 2-week period. It might have been okay. It might have been an asset to have him around the squad and bring him in, but it might have upset everything. That was Deschamps' issue, I guess. It was like, if I bring you back now, will it upset the mood of the camp, and will it derail us? So he took a gamble and they got to the final and they almost won it. So his gamble very nearly paid off. I mean, it was just penalty shootout, wasn't it, that stopped them winning the World Cup. So I don't think you can blame Deschamps by saying you should have had Benzema because, you know, they did okay without him. I mean, getting to a World Cup final and almost winning it without a player is pretty good going. And who knows? I mean, Giroud is excellent in the World Cup. So would he have done what Giroud did? Would Benzema have been the same impact player that Giroud was against England? We don't know. But I think on balance, I think it was the right decision by Deschamps not to bring him back because we just don't know what it would have done to the mood of the camp. And it's always difficult, even if the players that get on, if you bring a player in the middle of a tournament, it's difficult to assimilate there. Everyone's kind of settled into a routine. So I think Deschamps had to leave him out. He can't go back and go around in circles. He had to keep him out of the squad.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Let's talk about some of those transfer rumours then. One of them, Janusz, is Marcus Thuram to Juventus. Inter are said to be interested too. Gladbach don't really want to let him go, but if he doesn't want to stay on, they would rather get some money for him. Obviously, his performances in the World Cup have made him even more of a top target for these teams. Could you see him going to Juventus and fitting in there?
I mean, I can. I guess we still have to wait and see what happens at Juventus, right? With the whole board resigning, it's not an easy situation right now. And so, look, Marcus Thuram, I think his best moment was maybe a couple of years ago. Yes, indeed, when he came in for France on a couple of occasions, the games have changed. He made a difference. Is he the type of player that you start 90 minutes? Is he the sort of player that's going to make a massive difference throughout the game? I have my doubts. But at Juventus right now, this is not the Juventus from 2, 3, or 4 years ago. They're scrambling just a little bit, in my opinion, even though their form's been good ahead of the World Cup. They're finally coming good under Max Allegri. But I'm a little bit indifferent in terms of Marcus Thuram because I just don't think he's going to be the sort of player that he's going to be contributing in terms of scoring every game.
Okay, the other rumour that I've heard, and we've got a few to get through here, Mark, is N'Golo Kante to Saudi Arabia, to Al Nassr, the club that have been interested and made the offer for Cristiano Ronaldo. He's free to talk to other clubs in January. Can you see him going to Saudi Arabia?
I made a little trip to Riyadh during the World Cup to try and find out a bit of detail on the Ronaldo situation. And one thing that is clear about Saudi Arabian football is there's a lot of money in Saudi Arabia, an awful lot of money. And it's not just the money that the players get paid, it's the lifestyle they lead, it's the housing that they get, it's the cars they get. Now we know that N'Golo Kante likes his little cars anyway, so it's not an issue for him. But it's at that age now, Kante, where I suppose the next big move is his last move. And I'd be surprised if he goes to Saudi Arabia, but he's not played a lot of game time at Chelsea in recent times. And, you know, maybe he looks at it and thinking, you know, it'd be a shame. It'd be a shame if he goes to Saudi Arabia because it's almost like you go to Saudi Arabia, you get forgotten about because it's not a league that gets a lot of publicity, but the money's there. And Al Nassr are a very ambitious club. That Al Hilal are the big club in Riyadh, big club in Saudi Arabia. They're the reigning Asian champions. So Saudi football is strong, and we saw that at the World Cup. So it's not a league where people go just to play at their career. In many ways, it's a good league. But still, N'Golo Kante, for me, is a player that has certainly got another year, 18 months in him at the top level. But who's going to compete with the money that Al Nassr can offer?
Money makes it easier. I played in Riyadh. I played against Saudi Arabia 3 times there. And I suppose that living in that compound, it's not easy. But if you make that sort of money, I suppose. Look, I think N'Golo Kante is the sort of player that wants to stay. I think he should stay at Chelsea. He's still, what is he, 30, 31? 31. Yes, injury issues, but I think that deal will come around in 2 or 3 years' time. N'Golo Kante, at his best, is still, for me, one of the best players out there. And I think the fact that he's been out for so long, he'll probably want to prove that he continues to be one of the best in the world in that position. And I hope that Chelsea think the same way. If I'm Chelsea, I give him another contract. If he agrees to that or not, because I'm assuming it's going to be one of those one-year deals because he's over the age of 30. But if he agrees to that, he needs to stay. I still feel that he can give a lot. I wouldn't be going anywhere if I'm N'Golo Kante, and I wouldn't be letting him go if I'm Chelsea.
Guys, you know what is going to happen, though, with the January transfer window coming up? Kylian Mbappe's name is going to resurface because you'll remember before the World Cup, we were talking about how the player felt that even though he'd stayed on at PSG and turned down the chance to go to Real Madrid, who were desperate for him, that he feels it was broken promises at PSG. And according to Julien Laurent, he wanted out as soon as possible because he feels that they didn't deliver on some of the things that they said they would when they re-signed him, when they got him on the new contract. Obviously, we've seen him turning up early for training and very focused on this one. Do you think this will resurface, Mark, in the January transfer window, or do you think that he's going to get his head down and continue to work for PSG?
It'll definitely resurface because that's just the nature of Kylian Mbappe. But again, there's no way that PSG are letting their best player go in the January window. And I say he's the best player because he is. Even they got Lionel Messi and Neymar. Mbappe is the lifeblood of PSG. He's the guy that can just make things happen just by the click of a finger. So Mbappe, for me, they'll keep him till the summer, and then the summer's when it'll really kick off because that's when clubs have got the time to make moves, the time to get a deal done. Why would PSG let him go in January? They might actually win the Champions League this year. They'll win the French League again, but the summertime is when it'll happen. And I think there's such a small market for Mbappe. You're looking at Real, that's the obvious one. Man City, well, maybe, but they've got Erling Haaland. I mean, I don't know how they could fit both of those in. Liverpool have always maintained a long-term interest in Mbappe, but as we said before, they've got 6 or 7 attacking players now. So where does he fit in financially in that situation? He's not going to go to Man United right now. Big club as they are, they're not going to sign Kylian Mbappe with the situation they're in, unless they get new owners. But even then, would they appeal to Kylian Mbappe? Probably not. So you're looking at Real Madrid or Barcelona. Barcelona have got financial issues. So PSG know that there's only one club that can really do the deal. So they're in quite a strong position right now that if they can't afford to do it, he stays. So the saga itself will never go away. Every transfer window with the same question: will Mbappe stay or go? January he'll stay. The summertime, who knows? All bets are off.
Yeah, one of the interesting names that's coming up. Go on then, Janusz. I know you've got something to say. Do you think he's regretting his decision, though, as we did see reported?
No. I mean, he's going to end up, trust me, he's going to end up at Real Madrid. It's just a question of time because he understands. I mean, he knows he's one of the best in the world, but he saw Leo Messi live that cup. And at least in my book, there are 3 GOATs, right? The 3 people there, it's Pele, Messi, and Maradona. Nobody, I don't want to say is even close to that, but those are the 3 players that can, at least in my mind, think of themselves as one of the best in history, right? And he probably, like many others, Cristiano Ronaldo probably is there or thereabout, although in my opinion, not in that top 3. Kylian Mbappe knows that he can be there. He's 23 years old. He's won a World Cup. He was in the final of the World Cup where he scored a hat-trick. I mean, an incredible game for him in the World Cup as well. He will be in Real Madrid. There's only 1 or 2. Mark said it right. I mean, the market, first of all, isn't there, but it's not just about the market because what if, say, I don't know, Chelsea could have paid for him. I still don't think it's a profile of a club that brings you to the highest of heights, right? Just the fact that you play for Real Madrid brings you a little bit closer when you have that sort of a talent. So Kylian Mbappe is going to probably win a Champions League with PSG, if not this year, the year after, because Leo Messi is staying right now, obviously Neymar, and they will continue to buy good players. And give it another year or 2 when Benzema is gone, Real Madrid will come calling. They are Galacticos. They can afford him. They will open their arms to bring Kylian Mbappe, and that's his dream team. So that's going to happen. It's just a question of time.
The last name that I want to bring out here is Michallik Mudryk. Now, maybe many people saw him for the first time in the Champions League this season. If you've been keeping a keen eye out on the World Cup qualifying campaign last year, we saw him against Scotland. He came on as a substitute, and honestly, every single time this young player got the ball, he did something purposeful with it. He did something positive, and we've continued to just see his star grow. Arsenal are the team that are linked with him. Do you know much about him, Janusz?
I do. I've watched him, obviously, from my part of the world, sort of, kind of. But I didn't see him any more than Mark or anybody else that's listening and watching this. He's got talent. He's young. Arsenal are obviously investing in young players, and those young players are paying dividends. They're top of the league. They're real contender, Kay. Hello, because you always ask me. They are a real contender now to win the Premier League, you have to say. So I think in terms of projects, the profile of a player fits the club and vice versa. I don't know how much money they want to spend. I look at like Ficha Kvaratskhelia at Napoli. I'd like him a little bit more. But again, a young player that's still a little bit unproven because I still don't think of Shakhtar as much as we like to watch them. And we certainly know that it hasn't been an easy year for them in general for the country. I'd still like to see a little bit more from him. So there are other players that I would pick over him, but I can understand why at 21, why not take a chance?
Yeah, just to end as well, Mark, is it getting to the point where Arsenal are going to be a club that are causing problems for others because players might be interested in choosing them over other clubs, given the fact that they're having the success they are in the project that's going on there?
Yeah, absolutely. Big players want to play for big clubs that are winning things. And also, playing in London is a massive draw. I mean, Chelsea have used that for 20 years to leverage their deals, and I think Arsenal are the same. Arsenal, arguably, don't upset anyone here, but they're London's biggest club. They're traditionally the biggest club, biggest stadium almost. I think Tottenham's slightly bigger, but I think Arsenal are, when they are winning things, the big club in London. So what an appeal that is to players, and I think they could cause problems. I don't think they have the financial clout that a lot of clubs have. You know, the Man Uniteds, Man Cities, etc. But they're still a big club, and I think in terms of Mudryk, I spoke to somebody at Shakhtar yesterday because I had a little bit of work with Shakhtar over the last few months. I saw Mudryk play. They played against Leipzig when they were in Warsaw, and he was really impressive that night. He almost got Shakhtar through at the knockout stage of the Champions League. But what Shakhtar told me is that, yes, they've rejected Arsenal's first offer, but Arsenal are the only club to make an offer, which I'm kind of surprised at, considering that he is one of the emerging talents in Europe. He's still young. I thought there'd be more clubs interested, but equally, Arsenal have made a decent opening offer. I think it's around 55, 60 million euros, which is big money for a guy like Janusz says. Is still quite unproven. The Ukrainian league has been so badly disrupted, as we know, over the last 12 months because of the conflict in Ukraine. We don't quite know how good he is, how much he's been tested against the top teams. So it's a tricky one. But I've also been told that because Shakhtar's owner, Akhmetov, he's one of the wealthiest men in Europe, never mind in Ukraine, and he's prepared to gamble on Mudryk and keep him till the summer, in the hope that they can, qualify for the Champions League again. And then the money they get from that will kind of offset any kind of fee they might have got now. So Arsenal might have to up the bid quite a lot, and to the point where it might be too much. It might be too much of a gamble for a kid that is 21 without that. He's probably got 2 years senior football behind him. It is a big gamble by Arsenal. So they have to decide whether they want to make a big impact signing now by signing him, or wait to the summer and risk missing out of him. It's a tough call, because how high do you go for a player that's got a lot to prove?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Janusz agreeing there, and Janusz agreeing that Arsenal are title contenders. But can we get him to say that they are title favourites? Well, you can find out, because Premier League Express will return on Monday. We'll be back at it here on the YouTube channel. Make sure you join us. Thank you so much for being with us today.